So this is just a short video on how I roll a slab of clay. What you'll find is if you roll a slab of clay with a rolling pin like this, if you roll it directly onto a really shiny surface like a shiny kitchen work surface or a polished wooden surface, the slab will just stick to the surface, and when you try and peel it off, it'll be impossible to move. So the best thing to do is to roll it onto something slightly porous, like a piece of fabric. So a piece of fabric like this is just a piece of canvas. And also, I might as well mention to you that if you're rolling different coloured clays, I would recommend having a different piece of canvas for different pieces of clay. For example, this one I use for red clay, and then I've also got another piece of canvas for white clay, white and buff clay. Or if you want to, you can roll on something like this. I think these are my favourites to roll on because this is a piece of tablecloth. It's just a vinyl tablecloth with a fabric backing on it. And the reason I like this is because, so this is cotton on here. The reason I like this is because it's vinyl, so it doesn't absorb a lot of water from the clay. But this side is fabric, so you can roll on it and then it doesn't stick. Once you've rolled the slab, you can quite easily pick it up and turn it over or just peel it off. So these are great. I just got this from, I think it was Amazon, just vinyled, cotton-backed vinyl tablecloth. Or alternatively, if you want, you can roll onto a board. This is a board which has been covered in canvas. It's just a sheet of canvas that has been stapled to the other side, and then I clamp it on this table. I'll show you what the back looks like. So the canvas, basically just cut a piece of canvas, slightly larger than a piece of wooden board, stretch it over, and then what I did was I just pinned it down, stapled it on around the side with an upholstery staple gun, and then I just put a bit of tape around the edge just to stop the staples from scratching the work surface. The fabric that you roll onto, it's good if it's got a fine texture on it like this, and also this. The weave on the fabric is very fine, which means that your slab isn't going to pick up a lot of grain, because when you roll onto fabric, the clay slab will pick up the texture of the material. And if it's a fine material, if it's got a fine weave, it doesn't pick up too much texture. So something like an old sheet, an old bed sheet is good. What I would say about rolling onto a loose piece of fabric like this or an old bed sheet is that as the fabric absorbs water, the fabric can get a bit sort of baggy and wrinkly, and it can wrinkle up underneath the slab as you're rolling. So that's why it's good if you can roll on something like this. So this is the rolling pin that I use. It's a pasta roller. You can get these from ceramic suppliers, but I bought mine from a food wholesaler just because it was a bit cheaper. And then I have another rolling pin for dark clays as well. So you need a rolling pin, also rolling sticks. These are basically just to so that you can gauge the thickness of your slab accurately. You can put them on either side of the slab, and as you roll, when the rolling pin hits the rolling guides, the clay stops getting any thinner. And you can get these in different thicknesses. So that is 3mm, these are 3mm, these are 5mm, and then you can get really chunky ones like these are 9mm. And you can buy these from pottery suppliers, but you don't need to. You can also just use a piece of wooden dowel or wooden, strips of wood that you can get in a hardware shop. They're fine as well. So yeah, so this is, I'm going to cut a slice of this clay off. I am going to make a slab, and then I'm going to use this template because I'm making a plate. This is one of my plate templates. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slice a bit of this clay off. I think probably about that much will be fine. when you're rolling your clay, it can really help to sort of somewhat shape the clay into the shape that you want it to be. Like, for example, I want this one to be, this is going to be if you've got a sort of a funny shaped lump of clay and then you just start rolling it, you'll end up with a sort of a higgledy-piggledy shaped slab, which is fine because you can recycle the scraps. But if you want to minimize the amount of recycling that you do, it's best to just shape it. So I want this to be a circular slab of clay, so I'm just sort of patting it into more or less into a circle so that when I roll it, it turns into a circular slab. Because sometimes if you roll it and it's not in the shape that you want it to be before you started, it may not be long enough, the slab might not be long enough, and then you've got to add a little section on. So just shape it more or less into a circle. And then what I do is I just flatten it out a little bit with the heel of my hand, just to make the rolling process a bit easier. So just flattening it out. Because if you start trying to roll a slab and it's a really big chunk of clay, it's hard work. Just turning the clay quite regularly as well, so that you're making sure it's not sticking to the surface, and also just so that it's being stretched on both sides as well. So yeah, I put the sticks on the side to stop the slab from getting too thin. So just roll it a few times and then pick it up, turn it over, and I'm also, so what I did then, so I think I was rolling it that way, pick it up, turn it over, and then also turn it so that it's horizontal, so that you're stretching the clay in a different direction as well. Because when you're rolling clay, you are stretching it a lot in a short space of time, and that puts the clay under stress. So pick the clay up, turn it over, turn the direction again. It puts the clay under quite a bit of stress, and it's just good to not to stretch it in the same direction too much. Pick it up, turn it over, change the orientation, and actually I'm going to move it, I'm going to put it like that because I want it to stretch out in that way a little bit now. Now what I'm going to do, because the slab's getting a bit bigger, I'm actually going to start rolling it on this so I can pick it up easily. Because what you find is when you start pick a clay slab up, the best way to do it is just lift it, hand there, and then hold it like that, and then turn it like that. That sort of supports it so that it does, because if you pick it up by the edge, it'll just sort of dangle and stretch. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start rolling it on my nice tablecloth. So just keep rolling. And this clay is a little bit dry. I can see that it's a little bit cracked on the top surface. It's been very, very hot and dry here. What you'll probably find, if you're using recycled clay, you'll probably find that you get little air bubbles blistering up as you roll, and you can just take a needle tool, poke the needle tool into the clay blister, and then just sort of squeeze the clay, a bit like you're squeezing a zit, and it just presses the air out of the blister. And then this is what you can do once your clay slab starts getting quite big. You can put another sheet of whatever fabric you've got on top, slide your hand under both of them, and then flip the whole thing over, and then just peel the top sheet off, and then that just stops the clay from getting stretched as you're turning it over. what you need to do is run a rubber rib over the surface. So the reason you compress the clay is to get rid of any tiny little cracks or any surface texture from the fabric, but also just to compress the clay and make the clay a bit stronger. Because when you rib the clay, the clay particles start going in the same direction, and that makes it a bit stronger. So then when I've done the slab, you may not be using a template, but if you are, you can just cut out your shape. So, and then this scrap can be recycled, and there you go. There is a nice slab of clay all ready to be made into a plate. And also one last tip, this is just a flexible chopping board that can be used in the kitchen. I have these and I use them. What I do is I slide them underneath the fabric sheet, and then it just makes it easy to lift the slab up and put it to one side and keep it out of the way whilst you're working on another slab. And then I just let this firm up for a couple of hours before I actually work on it, so that it's not too soft. So I hope you found that helpful. If you did, please do give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, and then you'll get a notification next time I upload a new video. Thanks for watching. Bye.